Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering Ted Lasso, Season 3, Episode 1. Smells Like Mean Spirit. In this episode, we've got a head-to-head, except not exactly because it's through press conferences, so it's like as not head-to-head as you. It's like passive-aggressive, really, actually. And it turns out that Ted has opted for the 8 Mile approach, which I have to respect. Welcome to Unspoiled. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
I'm Rashawn. That 8 Mile is really funny because now I'm just thinking about Ted talking about spaghetti.
Those are heavy. So yeah, guys, we're starting off this season.
Yay.
It's the final season. I really thought that we were going to get a little bit of reference to the pandemic within the show, but it doesn't look like they did that at all.
No, they did not. And I actually read something recently where they made a conscious choice not to do that because the timing of the first season, it dropped right when we were in COVID, but they had recorded before the pandemic hit, but like aired or whatever. And they just sort of decided that they would keep it in like what they lovingly called sort of like an alternate universe. You know what I mean? Because they wanted
it makes it really hard to like record about a massive event that thousands and thousands of people attend if you're also going to be like, and everybody's wearing their masks and trying to social distance. So yeah.
And then also like the and this was a really good point. I don't know if the creators kept it in mind, but somebody mentioned it, that like how dated it would be if everybody in it was in masks. Like you would go back to rewatch the show 5 years later and it would, you know what I mean? So this way it can kind of be almost timeless, you know, that you don't watch it and go, oh, this is COVID show. You know,
that's funny that they're like, oh, well, we don't want to date it, but he's like dating himself every second of every episode because he just makes like specific references.
Right.
So, I get it, but also,
yeah.
So the episode starts off in a way that I was not expecting. We have Ted saying goodbye to his son at the airport, who has come to visit him. And I don't know if we see his son again. This kid is like a little bit too cool for school. He seems like, you know what I mean? Like just a little bit.
This kid is a jet setter, though. This kid is flying across the Atlantic by himself. So he might be a little too cool for school.
I mean, I flew across the Atlantic at 13. It's not that much older than him. How old is he supposed to be? And I was not like, cool.
I think he's like 10 or 11.
All right. I was definitely not cool. I think there's some pictures of me in those like big glasses with the brass frames, bifocals I had back when they thought I needed bifocals. They were wrong, as it turns out. Didn't stop me from looking like a fool. So he's asked if he's excited to go on his flight, and he says that he's excited to go back to his toys, but not to his country's political climate. Which, sure, I feel you.
Ted is like, you know, watched a lot of CNN, which is really unfortunate because, you know, it's CNN, but what can you do?
So Ted is giving him an iPad loaded up with movies because he apparently, as we find out later, watched it on somebody else's screen on the way.
Shoulder surfing.
Yep. This is something like, have you ever had this where somebody, you're watching something and a person's clearly kind of looking over your shoulder? It's one of those things that like
really.
Some people get real pissy about, but I don't get why. Like,
yeah, I'm not a kind of person that watches movies or videos really on my devices. Like the most, maybe some TikTok videos on my phone. But like even when I travel, I don't like download movies and stuff to watch on the flight.
Yeah.
But I am really like, I actively try not to do it, which can be hard sometimes. Like when I'm flying, if somebody's got something, I just be like, oh,
I get what you're saying.
But then I'm just like,
be the shoulder.
I'm like, don't be that person. No, don't be that person. But also, what are they looking at over there?
Why not? Who cares? Like, it's not like they're watching home videos of their children. Like, that's the thing that I don't really get. Who cares? The screens are all on. Like, that's just, I think, something that comes with the territory. If you've got a big ass screen that's out in the open, everybody can see it, and you just sort of have to accept that maybe people are going to watch along with you, and that's like part of the experience. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't think people take it that way. I think people feel very much like, this is mine. Get out of here.
Weird. Get over yourselves.
Well, we are weird as a species.
That's true. That's true. That's pretty much the trump card to any argument about humanity. It's just like, well, we're weird. Pretty much fucking ended that.
I'm curious if it's a American thing or if it's a sort of global thing. I suspect that it's an American thing to being like, don't be looking at my screen. You know,
we're very individualistic.
Exactly. I pulled the screen up by its bootstraps. You don't get to just look over your shoulder.
Oh my God. I just had an image of an iPad in like Depression era, like Dust Bowl dresses. So he tells his dad that he made him something, and it's a tiny Premier League trophy. It's an interesting thing because his son says, I can't wait till you have the real one. And at this point, he's like, well, you never know. But later on, his son brings up again, like, you're going to win the whole thing. And he's like, well, and he's a little bit more like, it's about more than just winning, you know? And anytime a person says that, I'm just like, look, let him just have his little dream. It's fine if he gets his hopes up. That's just life, you know? Just let him get his hopes up. Whatever. But yeah, so this lady, she's very sweet. The woman at the gate, because they had been running late due to some Smash Brothers video game, and she says that she ran late because of playing Breath of the Wild, which I have still not tried playing, but I am going to once I'm done with Spiritfarer. It's a Zelda game for Sean, if you are not familiar with Breath of the Wild.
I was not. I didn't even realize it was a real game. I just thought it was something they made up for the show.
No. Yeah. Breath of the Wild, and then Tears of the Kingdom is the one that just came out. Breath of the Wild came out like 3 years ago, I think now, 4 years ago. So that's what Owen was playing a lot when I was playing Animal Crossing. And he never finished. Tears of the Kingdom came out, and now he's like, I think I'm going to go back and play Breath of the Wild over so that I can move on to Tears of the Kingdom, which is all very fascinating. Thank you for listening. So he goes and gets on the plane, and Ted has a long watching after him nervously moment. And his kid turns and gives him one final wave as he's going down the escalator, which really does seem to comfort Ted quite a lot, that he like turned back and waved. It just felt like a moment to me, you know? And I really liked that the camera stays on him as he like turns and walks away, because there is something so anticlimactic when you're having a moment that feels like devastating, and now you just have to like get in your car
and do like, the next thing, like do the next like super regular thing that feels very like, we just had this moment, and now I
thought we were going to smash cut my life to the next scene.
But I guess I got to go call an Uber now.
Boo. So on the way back home, he calls Dr. Sharon. Sharon?
Yeah.
Forgotten everybody's names already. And he tells her that he is mostly fine, but he feels like a little odd about sending him home all by himself. Yeah. We get a super cute slow pan across a Lego set where each of the people on the team is a Lego character.
Yeah, everybody's there. Just about everyone's there. It's really cute. The little beard one and the Roy one. There's one for Will. The Kit Man is down there.
I like Rebecca's eyebrows on hers. She's got like one eyebrow raised and a very no-nonsense expression. Keely's is blonde, though, and I don't feel like she's a blonde. I feel like she is like very light brown. I would have put big chunky streaks of brown in her hair. She's not a blonde in my head.
She's not? Have you?
No, and I want to look up a picture of her. Yeah. I don't remember. Maybe does she have blonde now for this season?
Yeah, she's pretty much always been mostly blonde.
Has she? Mm-hmm. All right, I'm gonna get back to you on that. We'll see.
Then granted, your definition of blonde might be much more specific than mine. You know,
well, like her Lego minifig, it's the same blonde as Rebecca's blonde.
Well, yeah. I mean, she's not the same kind of blonde as Rebecca, but also these are like little Legos. I don't know how much wiggle room they have.
I don't know.
But Keely's definitely blonde.
Okay. God, I think of her as like a light brown brunette with like blonde highlights. She's got streaks, but it doesn't matter. I really like Roy's. I like his stubble, and he has a very angry expression with like a slash for a mouth that is asymmetrical.
And his eyebrows are amazing.
His hair is really giving Elvis somehow. And then in the back is Nate, and he has just a very straight line mouth, very little expression.
And a head full of very, very dark hair. Indeed,
yes. He's got his young man sort of costume on. What a weird way to say that. He's cosplaying as a young man here.
But, I mean, it's kind of accurate, though, in a very strange way.
Yeah, so we have Ted cleaning up all the stuff that he had for hanging out with his son. Made a really dope blanket for it. Like, genuinely a very good blanket for it.
It looks like they had a really good summer. You know, the apartment looks really lived in. There's toys everywhere, cereal bowls that need to be cleaned up, you know, books everywhere.
Yeah.
You know, it does look like they had a really good summer.
And he recounts to the doctor an episode in which his father forgot to pick him up from school. And he helped out the janitor while he was waiting. And then his dad gave the janitor a tip to pay him for babysitting, which the janitor gave back to Ted, which the work he did, for which Ted bought the janitor a thank you gift, which he did not get to give him because the janitor got hit by a train. Which I just really want to say, that feels so... That sucks. Ted's dad killed himself, and he's like describing a sort of little bonding moment with this other guy who also dies in like a terrible, unexpected way. Yikes, Ted. Yeah, I'm really glad you're talking to Dr. Sharon. I'm just saying.
Yeah, this is the second or third, if you want to count Ted's father, which I wasn't going to initially, but to your point, this is the third time Ted has told us a story about someone. Like, remember he tells a story about the dog and like the neighbor whose wife died and then just couldn't like take care of the dog anymore, and then I think the old man either dies or gets sent away, and so Ted ends up taking care of the dog. So you got that old guy, you got this janitor now, and then of course his father, and you're just like, good God, can Ted get a break?
Yeah, it's just like kind of underlining his desire to approach life with joy. It's like he really learned how short life is early on in life, it feels, you know? Yeah, just yikes, dude. And there's that thing with like somebody not being able to take care of a dog. There's a place, because, you know, I've been looking around to see about shelters potentially if I was going to have to like surrender Sam, which I do not plan on doing, but God knows what could happen. And there is one place that's a ranch, and if you get a terminal diagnosis, you go to them and set up care for the point at which you are no longer able to continue caring for the pet, and they will take him on at their ranch. They have this giant place, looks amazing. There's like a bunch of dog rescue ranches around, and while I am sure that is the most demanding work, that sounds amazing. Like, just owning this huge piece of land and being like, all the dogs come and hang out.
That's the dream. That's the dream for us. Only it's cats, not dogs. But there's like a
cat ranch.
There used to be on Animal Planet. They would find these places, and there was like a old lady, and she had like all this land. She had like a main house, and then a bunch of like trailers set up on her property, and they were just cat houses. And the cats just like, they had room, clean, but, room to be wherever they wanted to be. They could be outside, they could be inside, they were taken care of, all their needs met. Just like, that's the fucking dream.
Yeah, that's amazing. And the pictures, like, there were reviews on Google, and I just went and like checked it out, and people were posting pictures of their dog in the they had this giant pond with a fountain for the dogs to get in, and they're like wrapped up in a towel, like grinning at the camera after having been in the pond. And I was like, this is the most adorable thing I've ever heard of. But anyway, so he's like talking about how he can't really understand what he's still doing here.
Yeah.
And I thought this was sort of fascinating because I didn't expect to hear him be so ambivalent about everything. I thought he'd be a little bit more hype, and he isn't, which is clearly sort of bleeding into his approach at work, because Rebecca is not happy with the way he's handling stuff, and I think it's a real reflection of his own sort of attitude right now.
What did you think of Rebecca? Is really funny in this episode to me. But what was your impression of her, especially towards the beginning? Like, she sort of comes around towards the end, but she is super focused on beating Rupert personally.
Yeah. And she says to Keeley, like, he didn't get in my head the way he has, but it's not like about getting revenge, but I want to beat him.
Yeah, I want to win.
And guess, like, I think she's fibbing to herself a little bit. I think that there probably is still some revenge desire in there, especially once he starts like egging on Nate to take pot shots and whatnot. I feel like that's just gonna stoke it even worse. But I can understand, like, the flame of rage dying down and not being quite so consuming as it had been. So I think she's telling some of the truth. Okay. But what it is going to come down to always with this sort of thing is, if you are making a certain thing like your identity and focusing some of your personal reputation on the outcome of a thing which you just genuinely don't really have that much control over in the end, I don't feel like that's ever a good plan. Like, I feel like it's so much ego that she's tying into this, and the second season, she was able to like let go a little bit more and allow everybody to have fun. And that's part of what sort of brought them together so much, except for Nate, obviously. And if she's clinging to, we have to win in this way, I just feel like that's going to throw a wrench into the works, like, in terms of the way that Ted approaches coaching.
Right.
Yeah.
I think
this joke. He runs into a baby and says, "I recognize you from that show, Leaky Diapers," because he's wearing like
very good. It's
little
very,
flat
very
cap.
good.
It's a very good joke.
There's when he's another good Dr. Sharon, when he's having a conversation with Dr. Sharon, it ends with him asking her, is it okay to ask a couple of personal questions? And she agrees, but doesn't really answer anything. He wants to know like what sport, what team she's with. She can't say. What sport is it? I can't say. How many Australians are there? 9. Oh, it's rugby. Okay, I thought that was pretty funny. And then we see her get off the call, and she's got like a hot piece of ass in her bed waiting for her. And I was like,
I hope it's not a patient. Yeah, just FYI, that's Dr. not
Sharon,
ethical.
Dr. Sharon would never. She would never.
I do really like, though, that when he's like trying to describe rugby, I'm gonna go back to like the start of this rugby. What a game. It's like American football and sumo wrestling gave birth to a baby with huge muscular thighs all caked in mud. And that's when she says, okay, Ted, I need to go. And I could easily see it being, he's taken this little analogy too far and she's over it. But I like to think that he described muscular thighs caked in mud and she's like, I gotta go.
She's like, oh, that's right. I got something.
He's right there. I love a good pair of thighs on a man. Owen's got real good thighs. I'll just like walk up to him and smack him. Like, just be like, oh, just grab him like a big turkey leg. Really, really like some thighs. Oh, this guy's on his headphones and just like delighted. Oh, you finally got off. No, I didn't.
Not yet.
Okay. So Rebecca, she's reading that everybody is placing them last.
Yeah.
This is just conjecture. It's not like, does this affect funding or anything real and substantial and practical?
No.
Okay.
I mean, it wouldn't even affect ticket sales because, your hardcore fans are going to come out and support your team. A lot of people are season ticket holders anyway. But it is, guys, I'm not like I'm not a sports fan for real. I don't follow anything anymore. But I know that it is customary at the beginning of the season to sort of people will be like, this is who we think is going to do what this season. And it feels like everyone has picked Richmond, but it's not personal because they did just get promoted. And as Jaime says later in the episode, statistically speaking, a lot of times clubs fall right back down.
Right.
The thing that I was curious about and the show doesn't explain is I don't remember if any other teams were relegated. So I don't know if Richmond is the only team that advanced to the Premier League and that's why everybody is resoundingly like, oh, they're going to finish last. Or if that is not really how that works and the show is just really leaning into a thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it makes like, it would make, I think the only real other practical applications or ramifications for everybody saying how bad it would be is it would make it difficult to scout taps to like be attractive to other, investors, players, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. But other than that,
Yeah, it just felt like they were giving this so much weight and I can understand it like just being a bummer. But it felt like from the proportion of her reaction that it was like they were being denied something because of this,
It's humiliating is really what it is. It's like that's the main point of it is just, it's nobody wants to be told that they're going to be the worst. And to have every major outlet, and according to Rebecca, unattractive men in the basements of their mom's house, even like piling on, also coupled with the reception that Rupert got for now owning West Ham, which was already a very, very accomplished team. And so now he's back in the mix, and he is elevated so far above her. You know, he didn't just get here because he had Richmond before she got it in the divorce, but basically he's just back in the league now, you know.
Right.
And
he's come back.
Right. And he's like sitting in the top 4 while her team is down at number 20. It's fucking humiliating. And that's what she's responding to. It's really interesting to me to see how much. It's so funny when she's talking to Keeley and she's like, that's growth, right? And Keeley's like, yeah. Because it can be like that. We can really think we have moved past a thing, and then something triggers us and we get sucked right back down into the shit we thought we just climbed out of, you know?
Yeah.
And it's with a fiery passion that Rebecca has to like she is serious about taking him down. That interaction with her and Ted in his office when he keeps correcting her, she's like, we got to beat him. You mean them?
Yeah, like, that's what I said.
No, ma'am, that is not what you said.
That's the part that I find alarming, is that she seems to genuinely think that she says them, and I'm like, girl, if you don't have clear eyes on at least what you're doing, I don't trust your judgment on this, because that's like the base level we got to start with. So yeah, she says something about him saying we're going to win the whole fucking thing, to which he's like, did I say that? And she describes the scene in which it happened.
Higgins' reaction to, he's like, what? Because like really, like, how insane does that? I'm sorry, I'm trying to like be careful with my language, you guys. And it is.
Oh, you mean like insane as an ableist?
Yeah, like
term?
Really, like
I got you.
Trying to fucking.
It is tricky, man.
Shit,
yeah,
you know, and I just apologize and I just fucking keep trying harder. But the out of context, what she describes having happened, where you blew a half a liter of Pellegrino in my face, that has to sound like you like.
That sounds like a euphemism.
It does
to me
for something
that's just
really. That's
where my mind goes. I don't know.
In the workplace. I love his face. It's so good. It's so good.
So then we go to the locker room, and we've got Isaac freaking out because he is seeing yet another blog that is saying that they're going to be last. Isaac looks a little different this season. I don't know if it's just that he's like lost weight, but he has like a more like, what's the word I want? Sculpted? Is that the word I want? Angular look to his face?
Angular is what I was going to say. He doesn't seem quite as thick about the neck and shoulder area. It's like a little...
thick about the neck.
You know what I mean? No, he had like a...
I definitely do, but...
You know? Yeah.
Just something about that phrasing that sounds insulting when it's not. It's just meant to be like factual. And
I can't get over Jamie's hair. This hair is
what is
killing
happening?
Me.
It looks like he's part of the Backstreet Boys in 1998.
I'll have to let you tell him about it when he's ready.
What? It's not even just blonde. Like, there's an ashy quality to it. It's almost gray.
There is. Mm-hmm. I will let him tell you about it when he's ready.
Is this his natural hair? Is he pulling a Nate and just letting it grow out? He's not old enough for him to have this much gray naturally. Surely. All I'm saying is he's got the hair. It's
startling.
He's got a pleather or PVC puffy vest over a long sleeve with a turtleneck, and coming out from under the turtleneck are a couple of gold chains, and then the current style of the fanny pack, but around the shoulders like it's a crossbody bag.
Mm-hmm.
This whole look feels straight out of 1998, and I am startled at how I know that fashion's come back around. I'm aware of that intellectually. But to see it, it's the center part. It's the Devon Sawa hair. You know, like...
I don't know what that means.
Fine. The JTT hair. You know JTT? Rashawn, oh my God.
I don't know.
Do we have to do a Heartthrobs episode of Unsober?
I don't know any of the stuff you're talking about.
My
Wait,
God,
JTT. Was that the kid from Home Improvement or Home...
yes. Home Improvement.
Oh,
Jonathan Taylor
no.
Thomas.
Those are no. Oh, those are babies.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I don't know.
They were in my time. They were heartthrobs, but that's the hair he's got. Tell me I'm wrong. I mean, that's exactly the same haircut. Like, the only difference is he's got slightly less gel in it. It's floofier. So we're going along like 1995-ish, I feel. Mm-hmm. Later on, then they start to do that PC thing where they're like, they've got a little pomade in it to make it sort of, like, you know?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Anyway, so yeah, Yama says something about statistically, and nobody is interested in hearing it. Isaac is just truly like in his face about it. Mm-hmm. And then we have Roy talking to Beard about Hoosiers, the movie, mm-hmm. which I have never seen. Have you seen it?
Many years ago. Okay. On like basic cable. I don't have any impressions of it. I know it's a well-loved, well-regarded sports movie, and I generally don't have interest in sports movies. So a lot of the stuff that they mention when it comes to that kind of stuff, I'm just like, I guess, you know. Like,
he says in the end, why do they call it Hoosiers? And I don't know either. Is that something Hoosiers, you know the answer to?
No, I mean, Hoosiers is the nickname of, like, Indiana is the Hoosier state, and but I don't know what that comes from. I don't. All right,
know, here I go looking up what Hoosier means.
I could tell you what Kurt Vonnegut said about Hoosiers, but I don't think that's what you're asking me.
Hoosier just says a native or inhabitant of Indiana. The origin of the term remains a matter of debate, but Hoosier was in general use by the 1840s, having been popularized by Richmond resident John Finley's 1833 poem, The Hoosier's Nest. Well, that's very unhelpful.
It really isn't, right? That wasn't helpful at all.
Nope.
I guess maybe that's what the joke is, because if no one really knows what the deal is, the fact that Beard was about to drop some heavy knowledge on you but gets interrupted is kind of in the spirit of the show, right?
Yeah.
Remember when Beard was going to explain the mysteries of the universe at the bar, and then it cuts, and then he's done, yes. And he got like 12 empty beers in front of him. So maybe that's what the joke of that is.
So Ted comes in, and Roy is presenting him the 442, which is a setup that everybody plays like for the funsies. And essentially what Roy's assertion is here, that since everybody plays, he says these little pricks have played 442 ever since they were kids, which means they'll always know what they're supposed to do, and more importantly, where they're supposed to be at every fucking minute of every fucking game against every fucking opponent. And
Ted, God, who invented that? The Russians? And they're both like, yeah. I love Roy's vulnerability too. Excuse me, because he says when he's done talking about the plan, he says, I may not have Nate's like super genius tactical brain, but I know, you know, fundamentals and the basics are always better for the underdog. Because Roy is now having to step his coaching game up because they've lost Nate, and you can tell that Roy is intimidated by this prospect, and it's just I don't know, to see a character who is like the most intimidating guy on screen have to navigate this new world and being kind of unsure and a little self-conscious, is really okay, show.
Yeah, seeing this and then like the dealing with the breakup later. We've got a lot of Roy not really knowing how to move about in certain arenas. God, do you hear that? Man, there's a storm. It's starting. It has been nothing but fucking storms.
We had the fucking worst storm today. At 12 o'clock, I went into the office. It was today. At 12:30 in the afternoon, I looked up and was like, what the fuck? And looked at the window. It was pitch black outside. That shit looked like 9 o'clock at night. It was 12:30 in the fucking afternoon. The clouds completely, it was like an eclipse. It was like the sun just was like, all right, I'm out.
Right.
Like you can have a bad storm, but it's still light outside, right? This shit it was dinner time dark. It was the craziest shit I've seen in a minute.
I wonder if you got the storm because last night, it was last night because we couldn't walk the dogs. Even if it's raining, we just put a couple of jackets and get our umbrellas and we walk them anyway. It was not the kind of rain that you could do that. That shit was like a solid wall. And it was the kind of thing that I'm like, that would break my umbrella. Like, you know what
Absolutely.
I'm saying?
That's the kind of rain we had. Yeah.
So I'm like, maybe it just followed up from where we were. Fucking dogs are drowning it.
There was a bunch of hail. 2 houses caught fire from lightning strikes. I saw on the news.
Oh,
yeah, it was quick, but it was.
Can you imagine if your house got hit by lightning? I'd be so pissed.
Like that's
There's all these trees.
How do you not take
telephone
it personally?
Poles, like
right?
Yeah,
How do you
it just
not take
feels
that
like
shit super personal.
Like you had to have done that deliberately. There's no way that was an accident. Come on, what do you expect me to do? What do I look like? So anyway, I
heard the news too. Like, is that act of God? Does your insurance cover that shit?
Yeah, that's I always think about that because there was some commercial for insurance in like the 2000s where somebody says, what constitutes an act of God? And being like, why is she talking about God to her insurance company? And then like finding out what that meant and being like, okay, I stand by that. That's a weird way to say that though. Instead of like cataclysmic accident that's totally unpredictable, act of God.
Act of God. Right? We don't have to pay you because that was God.
Yeah, straight up. Just like, you want to file a claim, I have a church to recommend to you. Go buy a candle and take it up with him.
Insurance is such a fucking scam. I don't want to get this any more sidetracked, but it's such a fucking scam. Like, yeah, we're just going to tell you straight up. We don't do this, that, or the other. But by law, you have to have us. Like, you can't have a house and not insurance if you have a mortgage. But we don't have to cover everything.
But we're not going to do shit for you, though.
No.
Thank you.
Wow. Yeah, fucking.
And
I need to get
Roy, in this scene, he mentioned something about them being an underdog. And Ted is sort of like underdog. How nobody ever talks about an overdog. And he says, well, we say top dog. And I was like, okay, yeah, I actually didn't really think about that. And then, or more specifically, West Ham. And he makes eye contact with Roy as he says it. And then off to the side, Ted is just going, very unhappy. And with that, we go over to West Ham and Nate pulling in his little Mr. Bean mobile.
I love this little car so much.
It's adorable.
It is the cutest little thing. I loved it since season 1. It is. I don't know what kind of car it is. I don't. It's got to be like something. Like I don't think I've ever seen a car like this in the States. This is a very British situation. Whatever this is, right? It is cute as a button. Love this car. And so what happens later on, I took really personally.
The whole way that this goes. So The overall vibe here, he's going up an escalator past a woman who greets him and he literally doesn't even glance her way.
Stone face.
He goes and sits at his desk and a guy comes in to greet him and is like friendly and he tells him to get out. I mean, I if this is what you want, Nate, I guess. But like I have trouble understanding it. Yeah, very much so. And of course, what he's doing all the time is scrolling through social media, seeing what the vibe is about him. It's constant. He just cannot help himself. And this really bugs the shit out of me. He is still arguing about how he said wunderkind. Nate, that ship has sailed and made port and been disassembled and turned into housing. That ship is gone. Let it go, bruh.
Can't let it go.
My God.
It is a moment of... So we already know from seasons 1 and 2, especially season 2, how deeply insecure he is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this moment where he is embarrassed, it's a small humiliation. I mean, I wouldn't have wanted it to happen to me, trying to be empathetic. But still, it was a minor thing, you know, that he...
Are you talking about the car?
No, the Wonder Kid incident when he said it on...
you know, right. Okay, yeah.
When he misspoke. Like, that can be very embarrassing. Trust me, I know. But it, like, lives rent-free in his head. You know, he can't move past that moment. He's stuck in it. And it is so crazy. It is so difficult to watch him react the same as if it had just happened, you know?
Yes.
Like, like he's so, like, you know how that can be sometimes, though, where you're like you keep reliving that moment, and you feel it. Like, I'll have sometimes something really that I'm really upset about or embarrassed about or whatever. I will feel the same feelings as though it is happening all over again.
I'll be like thinking about it and say out loud, fuck. Like completely unprompted, just because it's so strong that it's like it just happened this second. Yeah.
I do that too. Yeah.
Yep.
And so he is just and when people bring it up, he gets so small.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm pretty sure I said, you know what I mean? Like, he just...
I really want to give this actor some big credit for being able to simultaneously act like Napoleon himself and then turn into a sniveling, like, third grader who's being bullied. Like, I don't know what's up with his range in doing this, but he is super convincing in both roles.
Yeah. Nick Muhammad, very, very good.
When he's like Napoleon, I know that's like an act. I'm aware that's an act, but he's very convincing. Yeah. You know, it's really pretty fucking solid. So, damn.
Yeah. I love that they're playing, what is this song? It's Eric B. and Rakim. Is it Follow the Leader that's playing?
Do not know. Didn't ring any bells for me.
I have the sound off, so I can't hear it.
Oh my God. The guy he tells to get out calls him Wonder Kid. So I'm going to say that that's probably what prompts him to be extra mean, is that the guy said Wonder Kid. I was like, so then we go over to Keeley's business, which looks gorgeous. And Rebecca is coming to visit. There's this amazing floral display as she's walking in that I noticed. And then it turns out that this is like costing $200 a week, which sounds right to me. It's truly beautiful, but that doesn't need to be $200. But flowers are crazy. See, I'm doing it now. Flowers are unreasonably expensive. Rebecca is wearing this like T-length, not quite, more like mid-calf length white coat. I
wardrobe continues to be fucking never misses. There's a whole Instagram account, I don't know if we ever talked about it before, called Welton Wears, where it's just breaking down Rebecca's outfits, and she tells you like what designer she's wearing.
Amazing. Yeah, I'm gonna check that out.
It's really good. Yeah, it's called Welton Wears, and
this coat. What kills me about something like this, and obviously, if you have Rebecca's money, it will be tailored. But I have tried to get coats this length, and it just makes me look like I'm wearing my parents' coat because I have such short legs that it doesn't hit the right spot on my legs, and it just feels sloppy and weird.
Right.
So, yeah, I just like, oh, this whole look is so good. So
I always regretted that I didn't learn how to wear heels more and get accustomed to wearing them in my everyday life. At my height, and I have long legs, like nice heels would cut a very nice figure. But because I am a lifelong non-driver, that means I'm always walking everywhere and always taking public transportation everywhere. So I never got into the habit of wearing heels. Heels are what you wear when you don't fucking have to walk anywhere. So I never got into like the habit of knowing how to. So now whenever I put them on, my feet are like, bitch. And now at my age, that ship has also sailed.
Made it to housing. Yeah, they have Carrie Bradshaw prancing around in 4-inch heels, and I'm like, I guess she weighs like 40 pounds, so maybe she can get away with it because there's so little weight on the balls of her feet. It's not an issue for her. I used to wear heels a ton when I worked in hotels, and I had to like work myself up to it. And then once I started working in kitchens, I didn't have heels on nearly as often, and I completely lost the accustomed that sort of like your feet just get used to being uncomfortable and you don't notice it. Yeah. Eventually you start to notice it again, and it's just like, why am I doing this to myself? Yeah. I will literally put them on to just stand in the shoes and take a picture and be like, I don't think I even want to do this, not for these 30 seconds. I don't like just trying to adjust and get in the right posture while I'm in this position is like tipping me the wrong way. Yeah, it's so sad. I love heels. I see so many that I like.
I used to love them when I was a little girl. I couldn't wait to get old enough to wear them. You know, my mom always had like a closet full of heels, and I was like, oh, I can't wait. And that shit just never worked out for me, except for boots. Like I can wear like a heel on a nice boot, but that's like the most I'll do. And even those will be chunky. They won't be like stilettos like she wears. I
had a pair of stiletto knee-high boots that I walked everywhere in London, and they were super comfortable. And they were like probably a good 3-inch and stiletto heel. But there was one day that I got off the wrong stop, and the train shut down, and I had to walk, and I will never forget the pain. Like I considered just taking them off, but it was January and I was just not going to do that. No. But yeah, they were so comfortable. And then there was just one day where it was like, let's see how comfortable they are now, bitch. So do you hear that?
I did. I heard that one. Yeah.
I can't tell if that's my dog or the dogs next door. Don't know. She introduces everybody, invites Rebecca into her office, and shows off this feature of the glass wall because the guy who used to own this building or this section of the building was a serial sexual harasser, so probably installed this feature so that he could do shady things. And it is an amazing feature.
It's
like
cool
the way
as
that
fuck.
That
is really cool. Even Rebecca is super impressed. Like that's
how
dope.
Does that work?
Don't know, but that's great. I am not a fan of like that sort of all glass office. And I worked at a place that had all the offices were like that. But this feature right here, I was like, oh, that's dope.
Yeah. So Keeley uses the feature and immediately begins sobbing and catches Rebecca quite off guard.
I to schedule time to cry, and I double booked you because it's the same time that she scheduled for Rebecca to come see her. But I have to put time in my calendar to cry. It's some real shit, y'all.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Because sometimes, like, if you're not careful, that 15 minutes will turn into like 4 hours. You got to schedule it. I hit this time.
It's either the 15 minutes turns into 4 hours, or you don't cry at all because you don't have time, and it builds up until you have a breakdown, which is basically what happened to me a few years ago.
Rebecca says, she tells Keeley, the last 3 years I was married to Rupert, I don't think I cried once.
Yep.
Yeah,
there comes a point where, like, if you're feeling too much, you're just like, it's safer to just not feel it. Let's just
numb it down.
Like, you can just do that forever. No, you can't. It'll catch up. And
then it cuts to them after the crying session where they're both like Keeley is like freshening up her makeup and Rebecca's eating some salad, and they're just talking about how much better they both feel. What does Rebecca say? She says it's like an orgasm. She says for the spirit soul. Or for the soul.
Yeah. I think you might be right, actually. I think it's a spirit. I think that's what she says.
I honestly couldn't remember.
But she's got the two like eye marks from Keeley's makeup on her blouse. Very, very dark.
How funny was that? And then later on when Higgins shows it.
And I kind of like the fact that like we don't actually we aren't aware of what's happening yet. But I thought what was going on here was her crying from overwhelm from her job. And we find out that her and Roy are breaking up, and it very well may also be her job because this is a lot she's taking on. Yeah. But once I like realized that they were splitting, I was like, oh yeah, that'll like just fucking hit you some days. And it makes sense to sort of get your time in and make sure that you've let yourself have the feels.
She tells Rebecca too in that same towards the end of that scene that she's going to have the big talk with Roy and Phoebe like that same night.
Yeah.
So, but I wanted to just mention Barbara. I wanted to ask you about Barbara. That's the CFO.
Oh, is that the woman that comes in and tells her flowers are for funerals and dead marriages?
Yeah.
Is that what she says?
Yeah.
Barbara, I'm going to need you to take some time off and do something fun before your whole soul breaks into brittle pieces, because you're not okay, sweetie. You're not. And it's wild how you're acting like Keeley's not okay. I get that this is not necessarily a super responsible use of funds, but I don't know what kind of money Keeley's making. So maybe it's fine. It might be fine. You know, like spending $200 a week on flowers sounds insane to me, but she's
as
in
a business
this
expense,
office. I kind of feel like if she's in this office, then she can afford that for the flowers. I mean, come on.
Mm-hmm. It's also, we find out that these people have sort of been installed in Keeley's business, which on first watch, I was like, oh, is that how that works? Like, so these people fronted her the money, that's what we found out last season, to go out on her own. And it makes sense to me that they would send a CFO to watch the money, right? Because they want somebody to keep an eye on their investment. But the other people in the office, like, they don't seem like they know Keeley very well, and they seem very stiff. And so, but nobody's offered to front my business, so I really don't know what the strings are to come attached to that kind of endeavor.
Yeah. And like, again, we have, my instinct is to be like, yeah, that sounds like too much money. But I'm also keenly aware the absolutely absurd expenses that plenty of companies will incur for shit that is absolutely not only not necessary, but sometimes fucking illegal. And they charge it to the company account and it's fine. So I can't decide whether she is being reasonable or nitpicking. It really just depends on like the vibe of the company that's handling all of this,
Right. That's a very good point.
So it's hard to know, because like yeah, she's spending it on flowers. Is that raising red flags because most people don't spend it on flowers, but if she were spending this on like meals with clients, it wouldn't make anybody bat an eye? Is it what it is she's spending it on? And is that because, like, is that a gendered thing? You know, is there that aspect as well? I don't know.
It could very well be a sort of like an idea of what is worth it. What's the value?
Right.
Here? And Keeley says, well, it makes the office look cheery and smell nice. And that doesn't seem to be of any real value to this person in this moment, right? To Barbara. But then I love your question. Is that a reflection of who these people are that are funding? Mm-hmm. Or is that just Barbara's own personal value system? Like we don't really know enough yet to understand.
Or are they just keeping Keeley on like a really tight leash because this is a new business and they don't know about her yet? Like there's a lot of factors that could be at play here. So all right, we go to practice and we've got all of the guys talking about Paddington, and I just need to register. I think Paddington like was rating out of marmalade sandwiches where they were going to come in, and he rated them at the bottom as well. And everybody is just like, that is cold-blooded Paddington. Rashawn, have you watched the Paddington movies?
I haven't, but you told me that they're really good, and I like Paddington. What a delight! I did as a kid, but I haven't seen them yet. But I'm looking forward. I think
you would have such a good time. The first one. Fan. It's just a romp. And the second one is straight up like the movie ends and you're just grinning from ear to ear. Oh, like I think the first one got a 97 on Rotten Tomatoes. The second one got a 99.
Oh Jesus. Wow, that's unheard of.
Yeah, it's really quite impressive. But yeah, I just wanted to mention Paddington here and like how shook Danny seems to be. Like he is really upset.
This is just like, because earlier in the locker room when they were reading all the blogs and the you know, everybody's opinion and predictions, Danny says something like, well, maybe they're just trying to motivate us. But this Paddington is just a bridge too far. This is even Danny is like, well, fuck. Like, so, you know how bad it has to be for Danny Rojas to be like, oh, this is terrible.
The last time that's happened, he killed a dog with a soccer ball. Oh, right. There is this moment, and I don't know. So he calls over the Kit Boy, says, is Kenneth around today? And the Kit Boy says, yeah, no, Kenneth lives here. Yeah, he does work a lot, doesn't he? No, as in he literally lives here at the facility. And apparently he used to be a cult leader, and it was shut down. Have we met Kenneth?
We've seen, we have not really met him in a significant way. I don't even know if the actor is the same.
Okay.
You know, obviously we've seen like a bus driver at some point throughout the 2 seasons as they've traveled, but nothing that I don't remember ever having a name. It's possible I'm forgetting, but I watched the first 2 seasons a lot, and I don't remember anything really significant except for there was that whole joke where Nate gets locked in to the bus, the luggage area.
Right. Yes.
You know, but I can't even remember if it's the same actor or not. So this, for me, this reveal was definitely a new reveal. Like this backstory with Kenneth was new.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, they're just like, let's have some fucking fun with this season. Let's talk about Kenneth.
So what Ted decides to do is everybody is so distracted and demoralized that he wants to take them on a field trip to the sewer and use this as a metaphor for keeping all of your frustrations and doubts and sadness contained and directed in a way that is beneficial to the team as a whole, because you are making use of everybody around you's like strengths in order to keep yourself from sinking under the weight of everything, you know?
Yep. He says, you know, when you start to feel like you're backed up, You just need to like let it go through you. So reach out to this, and he does some really, really good examples. He, you know, talks about when you're feeling down, get some Danny Rojas in your life. When you're feeling insecure and you lack confidence, get some from Jaime because he's got enough to share.
Yeah,
and then it turns into that thing with Richard about the wine, which was I'll tell you, one of the things that I really, really love about the show that they do, and it's so hokey. When Richard talks about the wine, and he's just basically like, because Ted is like, you know, ask Richard about expensive wine. And he's like, it doesn't have to be expensive, you know, it's be a good wine. That's the point. And then Ted's is like, oh, Richard, that's some real wisdom. And then the whole team is like, yeah, it is. That's really good. That part, that those moments really, really crack me up, where the whole team is just like, you know what? Yes, that is excellent advice.
I will say it did make me want some wine. You got a guy with a French accent telling me it doesn't have to be expensive, and I'm just kind of like, I believe.
Say less.
I'm gonna go and get my card. Thank you. I'm looking at Keeley right now, and I'm realizing why I don't picture her as a blonde. Her eyebrows are brown.
Oh,
that's what it is. That's like, for some reason, I see those eyebrows and immediately am just like, well, she's clearly not naturally blonde. And that is no judgment about coloring your hair, because girl colors her hair a lot. So that is not what I'm doing. But I just realized that, like, I see that, and like, that's the color that I assign. So, and it's clearly, it is highlights over a brown color. So she's definitely blonde, but I'm like looking past her color and it's weird because I'm not doing that with Rebecca, and Rebecca's eyebrows are brown, but they look makeup brown. They look like she has blonde brows and she uses a darker color to make her brows show up, because if you have really blonde hair, your eyebrows just don't appear sometimes, and it can make you look like an alien a little bit. So for Rebecca, I like get the I think it's maybe just how bright blonde her hair is all the way down to the root. And Keeley has like a ton of lowlights and stuff. And for whatever reason, that completely fucks up my perception and just makes me go, she's got brown hair with highlights, even though not really. Like, she's blonde, you know? I don't know. Just a weird effect. Like, I'm looking straight at her right now. And I'm still kind of going, is she blonde? She is. She is. But I don't think so. She's not really.
I didn't think this would be the part you struggled the most with, but here we are.
I'm just saying that minifig was wrong. They could have found a better color. There has to be at least 2 tones of blonde, and they could have picked a darker blonde.
On the minifigs? Okay. All right. I mean, I don't know. I don't Lego like that. Maybe there are a host of options that I'm unaware of.
I don't Lego like that. I like using it as a verb. So they go to the I knew this was going to happen. They go to the entrance to the sewer. And is this Larry, the guy who's telling him that you don't ask a hippie to do you a favor on their day off? That's
the bus driver, Kenneth.
I said Larry. I don't know where I got Larry from.
So, because, you know, he, and basically, you know, well, I don't have to explain it to you. Like, the joke is, you're lucky I was fucking not stoned when you called.
Yeah. Or he may be stoned and just managed to get through it anyway.
And then tells them he's going to go smoke while they go doing this, so he'll be stoned when you get back.
He's wearing this like black leather jacket with fringe. But what I really enjoy is that this jacket says something, and if he weren't wearing it, the rest of him says nothing. It's just this jacket. Like, I don't know, maybe there's something on his t-shirt or whatever, but it just feels like he's got a basic as fuck look, and then he tosses this wild jacket on top of it and is like, yeah, all right, that'll do me. And I'm kind of feeling like I want to get myself a jacket that does that now, where I'm just going to be wearing my like yoga pants under it. But if I put this jacket on, you're like, ooh, statement, you know? Should I give my wife this jacket that says fat bitch in diamonds or a slanket? That's a 30 Rock reference, you guys, but I want that fat bitch jacket.
Fucking Tracy Jordan.
So I knew they were going to get photographed going down there, and I was like figuring it was going to turn into a bit of a punchline.
Were you? Okay.
Yeah, because it's just like when you're on the bottom and you're literally like photographed going into a sewer. Yeah. It's just an association you don't need to be making. Yeah, like, don't invite this dude. Have them find a way in, at least, that's like outside of the hugely populated area with lots of photographers that can easily access it.
Yeah. It doesn't ever seem to occur to Ted that this would be a terrible photo op.
Yeah.
We go to Nate having practice, and we get to see what kind of coach he plans on being.
Yeah, it's pretty tough, guys. He says, come stand over on this line. This is a very important line. This is the dum-dum line.
Yeah.
Nate. Yeah. What are you doing? Like, truly, sir.
What are you doing? And he's doing
it's like he's channeling all of the worst teachers he's ever had.
Absolutely. You
know?
And his body language, the way he's standing very, very erect, his arms tucked behind his back, you know, he's surveying everything. And I like, what did you say earlier? He's cosplaying his younger self. But I like the idea of Nate cosplaying. You know, because it feels like, oh, this is my no nonsense outfit. So I'm putting this on, and this is how I stand when I'm wearing it.
Masking of some kind.
Yeah, you know. This woman, you guys.
I love her. She has no time for Nate. She is so bored of all of this shit, all of these men's egos, and just wants to be able to go home and soak her feet and put on Real Housewives and have a glass of Chardonnay, and they just keep insisting on being dramatic.
Is that what you think of her?
That's my energy from her, yes.
Is surrounded by these little boys, and she's just fucking exhausted by the time she gets home having to deal with all this nonsense.
That's really it. It's like
her name
the kind
is Miss
of thing
Cakes, by the way, too. I just want you to know that.
It's what? I'm sorry.
Her name is Cakes. It's Miss Cakes.
That's my name now. That's amazing. Miss Cakes. Oh, I gotta go change my Xbox handle. That's so good. Fuck. No offense to Miss Cakes. She didn't look like she was packing that much in cakes. She's very, very thin.
She's very, very thin.
That's a really solid name.
I thought you would enjoy that.
Oh my God. Fuck. Because right now, my username on my Switch is Cupcake Queen. Or it's just Cake Queen. One of those. Miss Cakes. Somebody's definitely taken that.
Oh, by now, yeah. If it's not already,
I would have to put like a _X on either side of it. I know what you're thinking about just now, and I remember. The people listening are just like, that's not. I'm sorry, guys. That's an inside joke. So we go to like Rebecca. She is waiting because there's going to be this what is it called? I keep wanting to say crowdcast.
The press conference.
Jesus Christ.
Before we go to Rebecca waiting for the press conference, we have Nate going up to see Rupert.
Because
she
comes
Cake down,
him.
Grabs him. I love that she doesn't wait for him. Like first she's standing there because he doesn't realize that she means now. Yes. And then once he understands that he goes to like get another coach to stand in, and he looks, and she's already fucking halfway across the field. He has to run and catch up with her. But yeah, so this is
sort of what gives me the impression that she's like over them, especially because she sees the act Nate's putting on down at the field, but then she also sees the obsequious belly crawler that he turns into when he's around Rupert. So she's got to know what a complete farce that all is. And that's going to just ruin your respect for somebody.
Absolutely.
Like entirely, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, the scene with Rupert is when he says something like they're ranked 20th because there's no 21st, and Rupert's just like, write that down.
That. He's beside himself with that. And what else he tells him?
Is this the scene with the car getting towed? I can't remember if that happens now or later. I think it's now, right?
I think it happens towards the end of this conversation. There's a joke he says, and I meant to look this up. When Nate says, "How was your trip?" and Rupert says, "It was really good. We spent it with the Sacklers, but we had to stay 50 miles offshore."
Right. Because I immediately thought of the Epsteins.
Right. I think is the Sackler family the family that like was behind the opiate. The drug are they the ones that had the big documentary about them?
Oh,
I know their name, and I meant to look into it, but because the show is always fucking like the show is always saying something, you know. Everything that they throw out is a thing. It's just a matter of how much Sackler family. Oh yeah, they have documentary. Yeah, they're the ones. The Sackler family. They're the ones that own the They own like Purdue Pharmaceuticals, and they're the ones that OxyContin that got everybody. That's who they are.
Oh wow!
So now that we know who they are, that is who Rupert spent his vacation with.
Choice.
Yeah,
that's a choice. Okay, sir. I suppose.
Did you catch when Rebecca shows up at Keeley's office? Keeley's on the phone. And she waves at Rebecca to come in.
Oh, yes. And she's like, no, I would not like to talk about the unfair advantage that female team owners have. And she hangs up and just says, fuck you, Joe Rogan. What a delightful little moment. I really wonder, if you are Joe Rogan, what do you do in response to this little dig on a show? Like,
fucking
do you
let it fly. Let it fly. Don't be innate. Let it go. Don't engage.
Say Joe Rogan comments on Ted Lasso and see if he I love this. The first title is from essentiallysports.com, and it's an article about Ted Lasso, and it says triggering Joe Rogan fanboys the first day back is the name of the article.
Listen.
Oh, man.
Obviously, you know, I can't go into great detail. In my opinion, this show kept the very same energy that it kept from the very first season. But there were a lot of people who claimed to be fans who were just like, the show's too woke. It's too woke.
How about
now.
That? This show about treating people well and being wholesome and working on yourself and introspection and getting therapy. It's too woke.
It's too woke. It's too woke.
You weren't watching the show, sir. I don't know what to tell you.
I can't believe they made it to the third season and we're surprised. But, you know, what can you do? I suspect that people see a Ted Lasso kind of character, and he's wholesome and traditional and from the Midwest, and they just sort of self-insert and make a lot of assumptions about what he's going to be, you know? Like, they see themselves in him and assume that means they're going to have the very same sort of value system. And then he doesn't, and they're left feeling very betrayed and quite angry.
And like, I get that in terms of the way I react when I like a character and then they turn out to be like racist or fat phobic, and I'm just like, I really like this character, what the fuck. But it's really funny because they are just going in the exact opposite direction, where like, this person's too nice, too good. Really? Oh my god, there's a Ted Lasso subreddit. I'm not looking at anything else for spoilers. The post says, currently working through season 3, can someone explain the Joe Rogan thing to me? And he describes the scene. I listen to Joe Rogan casually from time to time if there's a cool guest on, but had never got any hint of him having these kinds of views. Am I missing something? Thanks in advance. The thread has been locked by moderators. And underneath, everybody is like, it's really weird that you haven't gotten a hint of these kinds of views because he's famous for these. And then somebody does a list of all the shitty things he's done, and another person says, LOL, you can't be serious, he's a human shit stain. Oh damn.
Oh shit.
Well, anyway, all right, so let's we gotta pick up our pace a little bit here.
All right,
so they watch the press conference, the crowdcast, as I like to call it. And it's live on Rebecca's laptop while she's in her office. And so we cut back and forth between her reactions to things and Nate in the moment. And he's so excited at first when he sits down and really is like not prepared for the kinds of aggressive questions that he is going to get, which is so, it's funny to me because if you watch the way that people came at Ted when he was first installed, one of the things that somebody says, and I think it's Trent Krim, Independent, is, doesn't he say, is this a fucking joke?
Is this a fucking joke? Yeah.
So this guy is just like, you used to wash their underwear. Are you a little overwhelmed? Which is honestly pretty softball considering.
Compared.
What, you know? And Nate just says, I'm overwhelmed by the stupidity of asking that kind of question.
Yeah, he's surprised that somebody who could look so intelligent could ask such a stupid question. But before that moment, there's the initial, somebody asks, how are you getting along with the team? And he stumbles and he starts to sing, you know, I'm getting to know them.
Getting to know all about them.
Right? And he loses like the plot. Everybody's just like, what the fuck? And it's different Nate. It's like, it's insecure Nate, like not this persona that he's putting on, not this cosplay that he's putting on. And he ducks down and hides under the table for a second, and there's a sort of a flashback. He starts to have a panic attack in the way that we had seen Ted with the noise and the sort of tunnel vision.
Yep.
And he sees the picture of him and Ted.
Yep.
He sees his father's disapproving looks. And there's a third thing. I can't remember what the third thing was. Oh, the bullying when he's a kit man still.
Oh,
at the very beginning, and Isaac and Jaime and all them. So he flashes on those 3 moments, and then he spits, and then he comes back up to the table. That's when the guy asks him about like overwhelm, and he responds with that sort of nastiness. He comes back up from hiding under the table with his other mask on. Yeah, and
the spitting thing, it's just so like hateful to himself that it's a bummer to watch that's where he's sourcing his confidence from, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, he's like brutal, and he repeats the joke about there's no 21 and looks over at Rupert for like approval.
Yes.
And Rupert is just really like the manipulation that's happening because Rupert knows exactly the kind of person that Nate is. Yep. It's so hard to watch because Nate thinks he's getting real approval, and he doesn't actually approve of you, Nate. He approves of the fact that you are easy to control and will probably get the job done. But that's not the same thing as like having respect for you, which is what you think is going on.
Yep.
And the scene where the car is getting towed, Rupert's like under the misapprehension that this is the car of one of the cleaners.
Yeah.
And is totally fine with fucking absolutely screwing this person's day, week, potentially month up. And is like very smug about it.
Some poor person had the audacity to park their piece of shit poor person car in what I believe she calls it the prestige lot or either the elite lot. I forget one of those.
I think it's prestige.
Right?
Yeah.
And yeah, to your point, he is not sitting security to find out who it belongs. You know, well, security is going to both tow it, but also try to figure out who it belongs to. But it's so important to get this ugly thing out of his line of sight and next to his nice car. And that's just so gross.
So,
and
later on, he gives Nate a car.
Yeah, I have no idea what kind of car this is, but it's a nice car.
Same. It's just a car that's just like every other car.
It's a car
look any different, doesn't run any different. It's the exact same as any car.
It's a car that's so fancy, I don't recognize whatever that logo was. Like, usually I can spot it. Like, oh, that's this. That's Porsche. That's Ferrari. I have no idea what that was. That's like some super
custom
shit.
Italian job from like a dude who's made 11 cars in his lifetime.
Honestly.
But yeah, he gives him his car and it's like, again, Nate thinks this is approval. Nate, he doesn't want the humiliation of his coach being spotted in the car you drive. Like, it's not about you.
100%.
It's about his image, and you're parking in the prestige lot. You better fucking fit in. Like,
you're a reflection of Rupert now. You can't have you out there embarrassing him. You don't exist on your own anymore. You never existed to Rupert. You are only ever going to be a reflection of him and however he can use you, right? Because that's how Rupert and people like him operate. And Nate, just so
he doesn't get
desperate for approval, so in need of everything about the show, they beat you over the head. I mean, there's a couple of women that we love them, but this show is really about men, and it's really about their relationships with each other, and especially their relationships with their fathers. And Nate is so desperate for approval from his father, which he can never get. After the press conference, he gets a text from his mom.
What are you doing, Mom?
What is she doing? Why would she tell him that?
Why would you do it? Like, you know,
keep it to yourself.
What this man is like to his son. How about you just help out a tiny bit by editing?
Yeah.
When you know it's not going to hurt anything.
Saw you on the telly. Great job. We're so proud of you. Done. Yeah.
And she like tries to soften it after with like, he'll get over it with like a laughing face or whatever it is she does. But you could just not have said it at all because he'll get over it. You know, like, I don't get what her deal is. I thought her role was sort of running interference, but it's like, she doesn't get what, like, how hard every little hit lands.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't know. It's just
it's almost
weird
like
thing.
she thinks that her and Nate have this side relationship where they talk to each other about how insufferable dad can be, but dad is just like that, you know? So like almost like they're in it together, you know?
Yeah, I can see that.
Which is not, again, the parental thing. Like, you're not supposed to fucking do that. You don't you don't bring your child and make them your partner in crime as you talk about how difficult, but how much we love him, but you know how he is. You know what I mean? Like, that's not, you don't do that, even though Nate's a whole grown ass man. But, you know, you have to imagine this has probably been going on from when he was a child, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's when you
makes
don't
me
have
think
that
of what growing
boundary.
up, and I would like say shit to my mom about my dad that I know she agreed with, and she wouldn't agree with me. And I was always like really weirded out. I'm like, you know, that's true. And I've heard you say almost the same shit. And it wasn't until like way later that I realized she was trying to not like fall into it's you and me against your dad. It just happened naturally because he couldn't help but make that dynamic what it was.
She didn't actually need any assistance with that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then after that is when he comes back to the table and he just becomes very aggressive, very nasty, very snarky. He gets laughs, but he gets them at the expense of other people. And we end up seeing what it looks like when you are able to get laughs at your own expense and not at other people's. So I guess so moving it on. So he's feeling really good after
Rebecca's
the press conference, though.
Flipping out after she sees this. Yeah. And then as he's like in the midst of the press conference, the photo comes out of them going into the sewer. Yeah. And she pulls Ted into her office with a text that is very abrupt for her.
Yeah.
And basically rips his ass open. And it's just like, the fuck, we're on the bottom and you thought it was a good day to skip training and take them on a field trip to the sewer? Like, what is the matter? She's really pissed. And I will say, as much as I think her anger is coming from the wrong place because it's very ego-driven regarding this vendetta, I still think there's a big part of her that is right. Like, what Ted is trying to get them to understand here, I just don't see that we needed to go to the sewer to make this point. That's really the thing. Right. And we could have taken a bit and talked in the locker room about it. I don't feel like it had to be this, but maybe I'm not a good leader. And maybe the act of being together as a group and going, maybe that's a part of it, I don't know.
I think that's what we're supposed to believe, because he does have a conversation with Beard when he's seeing everybody on the field, and he's like, yeah, we need a field. We need to get some fresh air. Because Roy is like, we're fucking outside. What are you assholes even talking about? But which I really appreciated. Taking them to the sewer, though, logistically, it would be much more difficult than that, I think. Timing wise, you can't just bring up in the middle of the day because you met this guy on a tour with your kid over the summer. A lot of that is for the show, and I get why they're doing it. But yeah, also I don't know how safe it is just being in the sewers without protective shit. There's a lot
right out there.
You know what I mean? It probably won't be appropriate for me to tell that story on the podcast because it's not my story to tell. But I heard a horrific story about somebody who got very, very sick because they were in the sewer and they weren't properly masked.
Oh, God.
And they got C. diff.
What is that?
It's a really bad, very, very serious bacterial infection, I believe, that you usually don't see. Unless you're in the hospital and you might get it, or if you're in a very, very, I don't want to say underdeveloped area where you're drinking shitty water. You know what I mean? It's not something you just casually get. So yeah.
I just Googled it. Okay, yeah, I'm getting out of here.
But again, sometimes a show is going to be a show,
It's like any TV show where people decide that they're going to drive over to someone's house and confront them instead of just texting or calling and being what the fuck?
Yeah.
So she basically tells Ted, you are going to have to figure out how to fight back. You have a press conference coming up. I don't know what you're going to do, but you can't keep playing this rolling over, showing your belly kind of game. And so what he decides to do is basically I'm going to roll over and show my belly extra.
Yeah. And she says, I want to just really quickly mention when she's talking to Ted in the office, right? At first it's anger. You got to fight. And then she says, they are laughing at me. Rupert is laughing at me. They are laughing at us. They're laughing at you. They're laughing at the team. But when she says that part, that's really it. That's what's happening. She is feeling humiliated again. And I keep saying that because that's the recurring theme in this episode is people feeling exposed, humiliated, vulnerable, devalued, and from people who had power over them at some point in their lives, and for Rebecca, she's gorgeous. She's, clothes are great. She's running a team. you know, she got the team in the divorce. She's got all this money and everything. But what Rupert did to her, right?
Yeah.
Is so damaging. What he did to her as a person, that we talk about like Nate having a costume and a cosplay, but Rebecca kind of does as well, you know?
Yeah,
and
definitely.
It's changed too over the seasons. Like the first season, Rebecca was really like tight, put together. Like she's still tightly put together and her clothes are all still form fitting, but all her outfits are very dark in the first season. You know, her hair was always like pushed back up real tight, you know?
Yeah.
And now her hair is kind of like out and like kind of loosey-goosey, you know? Everything she's wearing is like pale pinks and whites, you know? But Rupert is back in her world now, and it's like the last 2 years don't even matter anymore. She's like right back, you know? So then Ted goes down and has this press conference where she wants him to be an attack dog. She wants him to go toe-to-toe with Nate. And he says, all right, they're laughing at us. I'm going to make them laugh at me then. They're just going to be laughing at me. They're not going to be laughing at anybody else anymore. They're going to laugh at me because I can take it. I don't mind it. And it is spectacular.
I really do enjoy how long it takes for him to get them to say, how dumb are you? Like, you know.
It never occurred to me that is not a global thing. Like, of course it's not a global thing, right?
Well, even if it were, it's not the place where people are going to jump on, like, the call and response. Like, this is not the crowd that's going to play along like that. So it takes a few tries.
Somebody says, why? And he's like, I don't know, just basic joke structure.
I love the one guy who does decide to play along, but instead is saying, how dumb are you? He says, how dumb are you? Like it's a regular question.
And Ted's face is like, well, okay, I guess that'll have to do.
But yeah, so he basically like roasts himself. And then we go to Nate and he's watching again this and all the socials, and he sees that Ted is being called Ted Lasso.
Yeah.
And
who's
Nate
the wanker now?
Like, yeah. And of course, dude, of course. Like, you can't pull the attitude that you do and not have a backlash. It's like there are going to be corners of the internet that respect it and love it. They're definitely, you'll have your people, but you will not have everybody, and you won't necessarily have like the majority. Yeah. So,
and not that people don't, because we saw the press turn on Ted, you know, before in the other episodes. So I know that the sort of good natured and it seems like they really do like Ted, and they like want to laugh at him and enjoy him and think he's great and he's classy and all that stuff. I know that can turn, but the sort of like laughs that Nate was getting, those are like, I mean, all right, we all like it when somebody's being snarky and it's funny, but also a lot of times we're just like, oh, I'm really glad you're not talking about me though. I'm laughing because I'm so glad you're not talking about me, you know?
Yeah.
And so the sort of laugh isn't that sort of like deep, pure, like, you know,
it's an uncomfortable, I can't believe he said that, like that's funny, but yikes kind of laugh.
Yeah. And Ted has a hold with people just, you know, actually laughing, like joyous, kind of like, you know what I mean? Just a very, very different energy. And Nate is so mad. He's
so mad. And it's just so predictable. Like Nate, it's really wild how little he's learned. You know, it's just, he just doesn't understand people. You know, he sees everybody through a particular lens of the like cruelty that he has endured, and thinks everybody is like the same type and looking for the same type, like the same validation that he is as well. And it's like,
and it's hit
for most of us.
It's hard to watch because we know that he was, you know, having this really difficult life experience with his family, with his job. And then Ted comes along and is like a fairy godfather, you know, granting all his wishes. And then, though we as the audience know it didn't go down exactly the way Nate's perception was, as far as Nate's concerned, he was abandoned. And it just sent him down this really dark, spiral to this really ugly place. And everything he sees now is from that ugly place. Everybody he sees is from that ugly place. It's almost like he feels like he was an asshole for thinking his life could be different. That people could be good, almost like, oh, what a sucker I was to even think for a second that people could be good. People are shit. They're always going to be shit,
Yeah, it's like, because he has such a bad relationship with his father, it's clear he was just projecting all of this stuff that he didn't get from his dad and hoping that he was going to get that from Ted. And yeah, despite the fact that he's clearly disappointed, he's still putting those hopes on Rupert now. He's doing the same fucking shit all over again.
Because we will continue to enact that shit over and over and over again. Yeah. I want to talk, before we run out of time, I want to talk about Jaime fucking Tart.
Okay, I thought we were going to talk about Keeley and Roy, because that feels a lot more important to me. But
there's a moment in the locker room. I just think it's a standout moment for me. They're in the locker room. They have come back from the sewers, and they're catching up on Nate's press conference. And they're just starting to get riled up again. And Ted is about to be like, oh shit, I got to go out there and get him. And either Roy or Beer like grabs him, like, no, wait a minute. Because Jaime has stepped up and it's just like, hey guys, no. Remember, it's just poop. You just got to let it flow.
Poop. What in the fuck?
Right? But it's fucking like it's, when you talk about growth, like we've been talking about Nate not growing and Rebecca trying to grow, talk about growth. Jaime fucking Tart, who was like the spoiled, like selfish, little prick from season 1, Now here we are, and he was
the one bullying Nate in that memory,
And now here he is, like, standing up, reminding the team of who they are, how they're going to get through this, hard time, how to focus. Like, it is such a remarkable transformation.
Yeah, I agree.
And I just wanted to make sure we gave him a little bit of a shout out. Because now we got to talk about Roy and Keeley before this wraps up. So, did you have any expectations? I had an assumption. I had lots of assumptions. Did you have any?
I expected them to be trying to work it out and struggling. Because of the way the last season ended and the fact that Roy seemed to really not get what was on deck for Keeley. I was sort of like, all right, so we'll start this out and they're going to be like continuing to navigate what it means for her to have a particularly high-powered career that he wasn't prepared for. And
so did she, apparently.
Seeing like the cracks forming. And evidently he has it seems like it's his decision more than hers, because she says we're going on a break, but he says we're breaking up when they have the talk with, what's her name?
Phoebe,
right.
And her Keeley's face, you could tell she's like, this is not what we fucking discussed. Like,
there's a whole sense to it. When Phoebe's asking them questions, there just feels like they haven't had a talk. It really doesn't feel like there's been good communication between the two of them regarding what's going on and why. It's just all, we're busy now. Well, you were busy before. We're more busy now. It's not like there's no feeling of both of them saying, here's what's going on. We're both feeling like we've been trying this and that, and it hasn't quite worked out. It's each of them very separately attempting to like give her a vague answer that they don't, the energy of their answers don't match up at all.
I took that to be because they are not having a conversation with Phoebe that they agreed to have. They were supposed to have a conversation about being on a break, and Phoebe had answers for that, right? Not Phoebe. Keeley had answers for that. But Roy says we're on a break. I mean, Roy says we're breaking up. And Keeley is stunned by that and doesn't have an answer for why we're breaking up, because she thought we were taking a little, like, you know, like something that was just going to be like calming down, not like we're just breaking up, like, and it's a done deal. So I took that, her awkwardness and her not having answers and him not even having answers, because that wasn't the plan. And then in this moment, he just fucking blurts out, we're breaking up.
Gotcha.
Because,
okay.
You know, why I'm not going to get into the whys of why we think he did that. Well, I'll let you get into the whys. But that was my interpretation of why it seems like they can't answer anything, because that wasn't what this conversation was supposed to be. And he just fucking went off script for reasons.
And it's like real disappointing, because the whole feeling at the end of the last season was, my girlfriend doesn't necessarily need me in the picture, but I love her and that's okay. She has her power and I'm not intimidated by that. And this is starting off feeling like, if she isn't going to be available to me the exact way that things started out, I am going to completely pull out of this. And Phoebe says to him that she thinks he's being stupid later.
Yeah.
Because she just tells him what the fuck she feels like, and I love that.
I love her for that. Keeley says in the middle of the, even after Roy blindsides her with "No, we're breaking up," when Roy starts to struggle to be like, "Oh, we don't have time. We're both busy. New job." Keeley says to Roy, "I know you're worried about." Because I think Roy says, well, you know, one of our coaches left. So now that means I have to do like more. And Keeley says, I know you're worried about that, but you're going to do great. And I'm wondering if the pressure of this new responsibility and his feelings of inadequacy around it make him need Keeley more than even he's comfortable with needing her support, her sort of cheerleading. And she's not around as much with as much time to be the kind of cheerleader that she had been in the past, and that maybe he feels like,
you know what the answer to that is, Roy?
For that right now.
How
so
about you get some friends?
Yeah, he's being like, this is my you know, I'm putting that on him, but I think that's what my takeaway was of this moment. And it was super disappointing, because this is not the Roy Kent that I love.
Yeah, I tend to agree though with your assessment on that. And like this would dovetail with a thing that a lot of women talk about, with men relying entirely on their romantic partner when we're talking about, like, you know, hetero relationships, that they don't often have a network of friends that they open up to and get vulnerable with. So they expect their wives and girlfriends to shoulder all of that labor. And meanwhile, wives and girlfriends have all their friends that they go and talk to and vent to and whatever. And we know that Roy has a lot of trouble being vulnerable, and he like occasionally very slightly opens up to like Ted and Beard, but it's not a real
like a
vulnerability.
Like, and then he runs away.
And the women he does like the yoga group with. Yeah, and the women he does the yoga group with, like, that's a hangout. It's not like he's talking to them about life stuff.
Yep, they don't even know who he is.
He needs to get some like support systems that are not entirely Keeley. That's the answer. As somebody who often would lean entirely on my romantic partner, I understand how that happens. Like, I have been so guilty of that. And it's only as I've gotten older and started to really understand what my personality's like shortcomings are regarding friendships, and that I don't do casual friendship that well. And I have like a really like sort of aggressive personality that requires people who are also pretty aggressive. I've found friends that I can be that with, you know, but it took me a long time to find those people. Like, I didn't have those people in my life. I wasn't able to just like text somebody, all right, can I just tell you how much I want to fucking stab myself in the throat right now because blank, blank, blank. And it's like, I ran out of gas or something like very petty, but I'm like, I'm literally going to kill myself. I didn't have that. So I would be texting my boyfriend at work during rush at 7 p.m. Like at the restaurant and being very angry that he was not texting me back right away.
Oh, wow.
So anyway, I see you, Roy, but you need to fucking get it together, dude. Like, truly, you are an oyster and you pride yourself on that, and you shouldn't. Don't do it. So that's that. Thanks for coming, everybody. We only have like 3 minutes left. So I'm going to make an effort next week, once we're back in the swing of things, to say hi to new patrons. But those of you who are joining us, I had a lot of folks asking when we were going to start this again. So
good. I just wanted to mention, so the episode kind of ends with Ted calling Henry.
Right, and finding out his wife is seeing someone.
Yeah.
Poor Ted. That's never a happy thing. I was literally like getting ready to move in with Owen and found out that Brendan was dating and felt a way about it. I was like moving out of the house and living with my mom and packing for Texas.
You had no legs to stand on, and yet there you were.
But I will never forget it. My mom saying, well, Brendan's new girlfriend. And I felt like I had been punched.
Wow.
That
really?
Like losing all the air kind of feeling, like it was so shocking. And then when he got married, like 8 months later, like he got married so fast, you guys.
It was fast. And then like the wedding that he wouldn't do.
The wedding at Hogwarts, you guys, he didn't even read Harry Potter. Oh, I was so disgusted. It really felt like pointed. It felt like he knew I was going to see it and he was laughing to himself. I'm sure it had nothing whatsoever to do with me. I am positive his new wife liked Harry Potter and they were in Florida for their wedding. However, I could not help but see she got this dope wedding that I asked for and didn't get. And also, they had only been dating like 3 months and they went on a trip to San Francisco together when I never even got a honeymoon after like years and years. We went on like a 3 nights away after my dad died because we got money from his insurance. We used my dad's money to go on like this paltry little trip, and that was supposed to be, you know what? I'm not doing this. I'm so sorry. We have 1 minute left. We don't need to be doing this. But I'm just saying, I understand what Ted's feeling because, like, yeah, he slept with somebody else, but he's clearly like hanging on. He really is. And it ends with the Beyonce song, which is
that song is so
excellent.
Good.
It's so good. Anyway, all right, guys.
I'm so happy we're back to the show. I love this universe.
Same. Until next time, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye, guys.
No, my hands won't be tied down, and I will not lay them down, 'cause I can finally see the truth. So simple but so clear, accepting an ocean's depths were out of reach for me and you. If you're coming up for air, breathing in, you know I'll be there when you first begin. And when everybody's telling us we have no time, we'll prove them wrong again.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.